for the next episode. I can't wait to get home and turn my TV on. I'm ready for the next episode. Got my snap shoes off, my remote control. I'm ready for the next episode.
Welcome to another episode of Next Episode with me, Nick, and
Jess.
And so today we're going to continue our conversation about Kevin Can F Himself. We spent a lot of time talking about Kevin and breaking down his character. And so now we want to break down some of the other characters in the show and kind of go into a deep dive on, what makes them, who they are, how they were written, what does it say, what is the show trying to say, what is the show using them to illustrate. So of course we talked about Allison. Allison is Kevin's wife. They've been together for 15 years, married for 10. Neil is Kevin's best friend, and Patty is Neil's sister. And so Patty is in the friend group also with Kevin and with Neil. Although sometimes she is treated like an ancillary character, but she is in the friend group and she's been hanging out with them for a long time. Allison has an aunt named Diane who they work together at this liquor store that Allison's been working at for a very long time because it's the job that Kevin allows her to have.
Mm-hmm.
Because he likes the fact that she has a liquor store discount. Another character that we also meet is Tammy. Tammy is a police officer who eventually becomes Patty's love interest, which is not my favorite choice that they made, but we'll get into that later. And last character that we want to talk about is Sam. And Sam is really interesting because Sam is one of the few characters that is not connected to Kevin. He's only connected to Allison because they were childhood friends growing up. They used to work together as teenagers. And so their relationship and their relationship history is really interesting. But first we're going to start with Allison. And so can you kind of give us a kind of bare bones, what kind of person do you think Allison is? And do you think it made it easier for Kevin to kind of get his hooks in her?
So let's see, how would I describe Allison? Allison was a star athlete in high school. She had every reason to, from the outside looking in, she had every reason to be able to excel, to leave the town of Worcester, which a lot of people, look at leaving as a good thing. But she had a very broken home life. She had a narcissistic mother, I would say, as well, and a father who also sounds like he might have struggled with alcoholism as well. And you really see her mom kind of tear her down, and you understand why, she does not believe that she can leave or doesn't believe in herself enough to leave. And I do think that that makes it easier for Kevin to come in and abuse her. One, she has that pre-existing relationship with a narcissist and alcoholism, honestly. But I think describing her in high school, it sounds like, now they only describe her in high school in her stories or other people's stories about her. So like I said, she was a star athlete. Sounds like she ran with the it crowd, but it does not sound like she was a nice person in high school. She says that, she had some friends, but on the swim team, which was a big part of her life, but none of the girls on the swim team liked her, which tells me a lot. Let's see, if the way you see the other people in the town that knew her, I'm like, I think she was kind of mean in high school, honestly. And so that kind of tells me a little bit about, I think something is off. There's something there. I think there's a recurrent theme for being really in competition with people. And so, yeah, I don't think that she was well liked, but she was well known. But Kevin meets her at the point where right after her father's wake. And so that also, he meets her at a vulnerable time in her life where she's just lost her father. It seemed like she was closer to her father than her mother. So that was a big loss for her. And I think that definitely makes it easier for him to kind of get his hooks on her. I think as a person, I would say, and I know this is going to be controversial because we are talking about a woman who's experienced domestic violence, but one of the things that the show does that I personally like is that there are no perfect characters here. Like,
Absolutely.
I do not like shows with perfect characters, and Allison is not perfect. She is quite frustrating at times, and the way she makes decisions and the way she treats people.
Yes.
I think Allison is quite selfish. I do. And so, like, the first time I watched it through, I wasn't sure what Patty didn't like about her at first. Like, I get it towards the end because it becomes obvious, but I didn't know why she didn't like it. At first, I'm like, oh, I can see how Allison is kind of selfish. You know, yes, she's putting up with all this crap from Kevin, but when anybody else is talking to her and he's not in the room, she still has a hard time of talking to anybody about stuff that's not immediately about her.
Right. Now, my question is, do you think that's because Kevin has isolated her and she doesn't have her own independent friends and relationships? So do
Mm-hmm.
you think that's why, she has trouble relating? Because those are not her people. Those are Kevin's people.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not allowed to kind of go out and find her people. She just has to, basically socialize with Kevin's people, and they treat her the way that Kevin does. So
Mm-hmm. Even when she's with Sam, and Sam calls attention to this, she goes the first time she goes to talk to him before they really kind of get into their affair. She's like, "Oh, I just needed someone to talk to," and he's like, "No, you just needed somebody to agree and to not to vent to and agree with you." Because
yes.
as soon as he challenges her, she's like, "Oh, I'm out." You know what I mean? As soon as he starts to talk about something about him, she's like done with the conversation. So I don't think that started with Kevin. I definitely think like the way that he treats her, the way she treated can exacerbate that. And I do think like she is going through abuse. So that is the forefront of her mind. She's in survival mode. So it's hard to focus on other people's stuff. But I don't think that's where that started. She's also mentions that she's an only child.
Mhm.
I don't think she's had to, really learn how to really
Yeah, I think
interact
she
with a
said
lot.
something like, "I don't like to share." I think she
Hmm.
said like
And
that
someone else
before.
pointed that out too.
Right. I also wonder if her father did not have some characteristics in common with Kevin. And the reason why I say that is because at the funeral, the
Hmm.
mom is not broken up. She's not sad. She, sees kind of relief, and she's like kind of happy that her husband is dead. You can see that she was
Hmm.
not happy in her marriage, which is interesting because now like Allison is like, I need to be free, he needs to die. But that's how her mom got her freedom.
See, no, I read that scene completely differently with her mom. I read that
The
completely
time
differently.
I watched it and the second time I watched the
Hmm.
scene, like the first time I watched the scene, I felt like, oh, the mom is the root of her issues. The mom
Hmm.
is the problem. And I think her mom is a problem.
Hmm.
Like Allison is a problem. But I would not be surprised if her mom is also a victim. Allison's dad was a police officer. What do
Hmm.
we know about police officers? A lot of them have domestic violence issues.
Hmm.
And she was talking about how, like, Allison's mom made a comment, something like, you're just like your dad. You have all of these wild ideas or all of these
Hmm.
wild plans. And
Hmm.
that sounds like Kevin. Wild
I didn't
plans
read that
that
way.
aren't, based in fact.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that like her mom could have been more encouraging to her.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think her mom was a good mom. That is not what I'm saying. But I'm
Hmm.
saying that I don't think it was just the mom that was the problem. I think that
Hmm.
maybe her dad had some of the aspects of Kevin. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Because, when you're a child, like, she was very close to her dad. But when you are a child, you view your parents' marriage differently than your parents view their marriage.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so I could see her being a child and only seeing the fun, crazy part of her dad,
Hmm.
you know, and not seeing what that did to her mom and the toll that his stuff, the things that he did took her mom through.
Hmm.
And so I'm not sure because we don't have, I think, I swear that sometimes the writers do things like this on purpose.
Mhm.
leave things open to interpretation.
Interpretation, yeah. Because I
Because
no,
like I said,
I still
this
I
time,
strongly disagree. I strong,
yeah, and but you like I felt more like you felt the first
mhm,
time I watched it, but the second time, the second time I watched it, I was literally watching for nuances.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Because the first time I was watching it and I was just like deeply experiencing the story, but the second time I watched it, I was looking for nuances because they put so much effort into small details in the show. I was literally looking for and they're playing with perspective and they're playing with what is the truth.
mhm.
So I was looking for those different ways that things can be interpreted the second time I watched it, which is when I came to the conclusion that I wonder,
Mhm,
the first time I felt bad for her husband and I felt
mhm.
bad for Allison. And then the second time I watched it, I still felt bad for Allison, but I'm like, I wonder what her mom endured being married to her dad.
Yeah, I don't read that situation the same at all. And I'm not saying that her father wasn't a problem, because again, there's no perfect people in the story.
Hmm.
And they definitely allude to alcoholism with the father. But I saw his
Hmm.
alcoholism as a way that he coped with the mother. I actually see, I don't know that either of them like had the zany, wild stuff that Kevin does. What I saw was narcissism in the mother, and trying to break down the dad. So I really see the dad in Allison. Like I see him similar to Allison. I see the mom as Kevin in the narcissism, but not the wild, crazy part. Just the I'm going to break everybody around me down. I'm going to break down their self esteem, and I'm not allow them to grow. And I'm going to keep them close to me. And this is why I say that. So when she says that line, that you're just like your dad, you have all these lofty ideas. I don't think she said wild. I don't remember the exact word though, but Allison was talking about going to college. Allison says to
Hmm.
her mom, I want to go to college. That's not a wild, crazy idea. So she was talking about going to college. She's like, basically, to me, what I read her saying as he thought too much of himself, like you think too much of yourself. They had just had the conversation about Allison bringing the ham to the wake, and she's like, we're not ham people. That's the problem. You don't understand that we're not ham people. And so again, it's bringing them down, and that's so she says that she has the talks about ham and about how the ham is basically too fancy for them, a ham, you know.
Which I heard the ham thing, but
And then, hold on,
these are
but don't let me. I
okay,
don't want to lose my
okay, go
thought.
ahead,
Okay,
land your plane, land your
thank
plane.
you. And so like, so that she goes from the ham thoughts to Allison's like, well, I was thinking next year I could go off to college, and she's breaking Allison down about going to college, about why she can't, why she's basically not good enough to go to college. And then she says the line about the father, about your father had all those lofty ideas as well. He thought he was bigger than what he was. Basically, he thought he was bigger than Worcester. And I spent 30 years bringing him back down to earth. And I'm like, that sounds like she is breaking him down emotionally and breaking everybody around her down emotionally to bring them there. And I think he coped with it through alcoholism, which means, yes, he does have some other problems. But I do see the father as more of the victim. But like I said, it doesn't mean he don't have problematic behaviors, because I think he coped with it through alcoholism, which again causes other issues. And no, I don't think he was perfect by any stretch of any imagination. But I see the mom as what opens the door for Kevin, and I do still see her as more of the problem, because she's trying to break down, like when she talks about it, she's not talking to me, she's not talking about bringing him off of doing crazy stuff, the kind of crazy stuff that Kevin does. She's trying to bring him down from thinking more of himself, like from elevating himself.
I don't know, because there's still some unanswered questions when it comes to
Mm-hmm,
Allison. For example, we don't know what kind of student she was, but we do know
mm-hmm,
she was a good athlete, really,
right.
really good athlete. And then we know out of nowhere in her junior year, she just quit swimming
Right.
with no explanation.
Mm-hmm,
And so not knowing if what kind of student she was and knowing that, like her one chance to go to college was swimming and she just dropped it, does her mom have a little bit of standing when she's like, maybe she doesn't feel like Allison is serious,
mm-hmm,
because we don't know what kind of student she was. We know that she dropped out of swimming, which would have been
mm-hmm,
her ticket to college. We just don't have enough information. Maybe I'm giving her mom too much grace, but I just
mm-hmm,
feel like there's some space and opportunity for nuance there, and I
mm-hmm.
don't feel like it's all on the mom. But with
Definitely
that
not,
being
because if
said,
anything, the dad at the very least stayed and participated in that toxic cycle. He did not leave
mhm,
her. He continued to cope through alcoholism, which eventually, to me, sound like it led to his death. But again, what do? They bring everybody back down. She's trying to keep Allison from going too far. So how do we don't know if the mom didn't isn't part of the reason why she quit swimming in her junior year. And even if she wasn't the best student, she still could have went to college. She didn't say she wanted to go to Harvard. You know what I mean?
right.
Like she could have went to in a school, but for your mom,
We
for your
know
mother
that.
to be like, nah, college ain't for you. You're not good enough for college.
Yeah. It's hard, especially if your parents didn't go to college. Sometimes that it's hard being that first person,
Yeah.
but to talk more about teenage Allison, her relationship with Sam. So in the show, they're
Mhm.
meeting back up and they haven't seen each other since they were teenagers. But when they were teenagers, they worked at a restaurant together. Sam had a girlfriend. Allison knew that Sam had a girlfriend,
Mhm.
and they still used to fool around. And she's like, well, I didn't really know her, but
Mhm.
you definitely knew that,
He
that.
was in a relationship.
And once again, I like the fact that they give her flaws.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do like the
Mhm.
fact that they give her flaws, but things like that.
This is what like there to me. Okay, the next thing she says after that, she was like, "I didn't really know her that well, so it wasn't that big a deal." She was like, "But I just wanted to feel like I beat her at something." So like the recurring theme of I want to beat someone at something, I want to win. And then when she complains about Kevin, what does she say? He always wins. He always finds a way to
Mhm.
win. You know what I mean? Like there's that competitiveness that's in her and how she sees life. So you are cheating with this with this guy that has a girlfriend because it feels like you beat the girl.
Yeah, and I'm like, oof. When I found that out, I'm like, they do you want me to like her? I'm not
No,
sure. Like I honestly feel like they wrote Allison as a person who I could never be friends with.
never.
But
I was
I
like, no
still
real
felt for
friends.
her in her victimhood. You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if I met Allison and she was in the situation that she was in, I would not help her because I find her to be unlikable.
Hmm.
And
And
I
so
would not put myself in the line of fire for her.
I do think like, and I don't know if this was intentional or unintentional, but one of the messages I got is that there are no perfect victims, and you don't have to
Absolutely.
be a perfect victim because
You
Allison
don't.
absolutely is not. She's
She's
very
not.
unlikable at times. You know what I mean? She
Hmm.
very like I said. I feel like I saw different places where like you probably could have gotten out of the situation. Not like overall, yes, the situation is abusive, but there's definitely times where she participates in the cycle with Kevin. You
She
know,
does. Like
she
when she
keeps
went to
it
the
going.
doctor and they asked her to go to therapy and she
Hmm.
refused and
Hmm.
she wouldn't even consider it. Now, I don't know if she's went to therapy in the past and maybe Kevin found out about it, or maybe
Hmm.
she had it didn't, she felt like it didn't work in the past. But it just the way that she just like completely dismissed it.
Hmm.
I'm just like, I mean, do you want things to get better?
The one thing that she needed was the thing that she refused from the beginning. She was just like, nope, I'm not a therapy person. Not gonna do it.
But then you make Sam your therapist, honestly,
Mm.
because like Sam and Patty
Sam and Patty.
become her henchmen. So Sam is her childhood best friend. Patty is Neil's sister. And so Patty and Allison never really had a good relationship.
Hmm.
And Allison has like this dream of leaving the neighborhood, her and Kevin buying a house together. They've been saving years and she's like finally ready to like make that move. And Patty tells her, hey, you guys don't have any savings. Kevin has spent it all. And so that kind of begins the relationship between Patty and Allison. And I feel like Allison treats Patty
Hmm.
the way that Kevin treats Neil, with the
Agreed.
exception that Allison does not go as far, because
Hmm.
Allison does not want to be like, she doesn't want people to look at her the way that they look at Kevin.
But
So
those relationships mirror each
she
other.
puts a stop in what she will do, but she honestly she does not think about the consequences of her actions as it pertains to other people.
At
When like
all.
she keeps having like the like as she's trying to kill Kevin and she's needing to do all of these things, she pulls Patty in. Patty, before she became friends with Allison, was she miserable? She was. She was, I feel like she was miserable, but
Hmm.
she
I
had
feel like she's
a
still miserable.
she is. She's a
Patty
miserable
don't want to be
person.
happy.
She doesn't, which is what I'm saying. Like Patty, yes,
Hmm.
Patty was miserable, but she was comfortable in her life. She
Hmm.
had her own business. She was a drug dealer on the side, although she was trying to be an ethical drug dealer and help people in need. I feel like she was giving herself too much grace. You were
Hmm.
a drug dealer. You were not the angel of mercy that you thought you were. You were just your salon was not popping until you started selling drugs. But whatever. She
And
wasn't like
stop popping as soon as she stopped.
as soon as, because no one wants those little funky haircuts you are doing, girl. Your hair always looks terrible. But I digress. But so Patty she has her little dry boyfriend. She has her little business. She has her drug selling business, and she has her brother Neil, who she takes care of. And she was content with her life. And then she made the mistake of telling Allison the truth. And Allison was like, I don't have any friends. I'm going to make Patty my friend now because she told me the truth that I should have been able to see right in front of my face. Because Patty says to her, he gets packages to your house every other
Every
week.
day.
He's always buying stuff. He's always spending money. You know, you guys don't have savings. Come on.
Mhm.
Like,
And
and
you opened an account with him years ago and you never look at that account again? You
I have
never?
strong feelings
And
about money, even within marriages. So that was disgusting to me.
it was, but then in context, Kevin is extremely financially abusive.
He
So
is
does she have? She said she called the bank and he was right. So does she have the PIN number? Can she look it up online? Probably not, honestly. To be honest, to be fair, she probably doesn't have anything
listen
access to. If you got to
to
call the bank in this day and age,
if I have a job, okay,
mhm.
and $1 of my paycheck is going into an account, I have to have access to it. And more than likely you can't have access to it. But
Right.
if we're going to share access, there is no way that I don't have access to. If I have ever put $1 into that account, I
But
have access to it.
that's you and me who were also very well taught to always take care of yourself financially and always have
Yes.
AC money, which I'm like,
Yes.
in this old age, women and girls are not taught that. I feel the need to tell them,
That's
always have
very
a separate
scary.
account that he don't know exists. Always. If
Hmm.
you deal with men in this life, I don't care if you got a joint account, always have a separate account that he don't know exists, does not have access to. But so many women are not taught that. And so many women do, I think. So that's where I think like it's hard for me to hear it the way the way it happened come down, because I'm like, girl, are you crazy? But but in reality, I
Well,
know
there
plenty
are
of women who
women.
know nothing about what the going on in their finances. Nothing.
That's true. I love when I hear a woman say, I don't even know how much my mortgage is. I do love it when a woman says that, but let me tell you something. That situation only works if you're being treated well. Like,
Yeah,
that's my thing. Like, you
even
have to
if
be
you are
getting
being
treated
treated well,
exceedingly
you still
well.
have your separate account. Like, I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
care. I do not care how well you are being treated. If you are a woman who deals with men, you need your own account. And that's fine. You ain't got to know what the mortgage or nothing. Make sure you got something going off in that little side account every month. Take care of, trust me.
a little
Because I don't care how good he
$25
is,
here,
they can
a little
switch.
$50 here,
A little something. And if you don't have
just
to
a
know
little
the mortgage,
something.
a little $500 every month, every 2 weeks.
You know what?
This is
But like that was our moms, though, and our grandmas. They
mhm,
always had money tucked away. And so the
girl.
fact that she's like, well, Kevin, but Kevin said I'm bad with money. Well, baby, how are you going to learn if you're not even paying attention to what's going on? If he's so
Hmm.
great with money, he
Right.
should be teaching you.
Hmm.
How are you
Yeah.
ever going to, what if he died in like before when you actually cared and wanted him to be
How are you
alive?
gonna get
What if
into
he
any of the
died?
accounts?
You know,
Right.
like that part was like kind of jarring for me because I'm like,
Mhm.
girl, it is 2024.
Mhm.
Who lets like somebody put money in an account for 10 years and you don't ever check up on the balance?
Right.
Because you're like, oh, we should have enough for a down payment. Well, baby, you don't know how much is in there.
No, you
You're
don't.
just like mentally calculating how much you think is in there.
Mhm.
That bothered me. But anyway,
Mhm.
so Patty spills the beans that they don't have the savings and that Kevin has been lying to her when he told her, yes, we can move and we can get your dream house. And that starts, their relationship. And so as Allison is on this quest to kill Kevin, I feel like she asked more of Patty than she ever should have. And
Mhm.
Patty,
Agreed.
because Patty lacks agency in any way, shape, or form,
Oh
she
my God.
goes along with it. And that is, I don't understand Patty
Mhm.
as a character. Like, I don't know that I've ever met someone who has lacked agency the way that Patty has.
Patty gravitates to the strongest personality in the room. Like whatever, whoever the strongest, but Neil kind of does the same. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know, maybe it's something with how they were brought up or not brought up, because it really sounded like they were not brought up. Um,
Hmm.
but they gravitate. So like whoever, like all you got to do is like disagree with her or like strongly enough tell her she's going to do it anyway, and she's going to do it anyway. Like
She
she
does
puts up
fold.
more of a fight than Neil does, but it don't last for long.
She does fold. And so as we said that, Tammy was spent a short stint as a drug dealer, and Allison
Patty, you
messed
said
that
Tammy.
up. Oh,
Patty.
I'm sorry. Patty, yeah, I'm sorry. Patty was a drug dealer and she was like dealing like oxy to like
Mm-hmm.
older people who were like having pains and things like that. Allison messes that situation up.
Yes.
Just destroys that situation for Patty. And in
Mm-hmm.
the midst of that, Patty ends up with in a relationship with the police who is investigating like the drug ring. So she ends up dating a cop named Tammy. And to my recollection, that's the first time she'd been in a relationship with a woman.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Patty was interested in women before Tammy approached her?
I don't think Patty ever considered it. I don't think she ever considered it before. And like, and Tammy asked her that. She was like, "Have you never been in a relationship with a woman before?" And she gestured or said no or what have you. But that bothered me too. Like they're getting together bothered me
Yes.
because like Patty wanted some time to kind of like Patty to from what it looks like, Patty had never been in a relationship with a woman and never considered being in a relationship with a woman. And so to me, she's asking Tammy for some time to just kind of think things through because this is a new thing for her. And Tammy just bulldozes her and it's like, that's not that big a deal. And she says, can you just let this be hard? You know what I mean? I'm still
Mhm.
figuring myself out at like 33. And so yeah, that all says to me, no, she's never done it, never considered it. But it really bothered me that Tammy wouldn't give her that time to really just kind of think it through.
The fact that Tammy pursued her
Mm-hmm.
bothered me
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like she started like using the fact that she was investigating the drug ring. At the time, she does not know that Patty is a part of the drug ring. She thinks Patty's just a witness
Mm-hmm.
to, a drug crime. And she uses that as an end to spend time with Patty. And I felt
Mm-hmm.
like that was abuse of power.
Yeah,
So I
that felt
immediately
a
got
little
the
sleazy to me
ick.
too.
It was like, and so like she kind of like to me pressured her into dating
Mm-hmm.
her. And I could not figure out if Patty really felt anything for Tammy. Like they did
Mm-mm.
not have chemistry. They didn't have chemistry. But is that because Patty's dead inside?
Okay, yes, because I do like I'm like the I don't think the idea of being with a woman necessarily bothered Patty. She just never considered it. I think she genuinely never considered it. Patty has a very narrow view of existence, and she was like, "Oh, I
Hmm.
could be with a woman. Well, let me think about it." Sam's like, "No, you're with me now." But yeah, it did bother me the way that they got together. Too, it did feel like an abuse of power, and like she just never to me Tammy I don't remember what the question was but like Tammy never
I
respects
said, do you
what
think they did they have chemistry?
oh do they have chemistry they have more than her and Kurt So Kurt, her first boyfriend,
Yeah.
which they
Kurt
have
was
none. They had no chemistry. They sit next to each other for 3 years. They don't even go on dates. They just sit each other eating bland, unseasoned food and watching TV. And so
Kurt
they
has
finally
bones
break
in
up.
his basement. I'm sorry. You can't tell me otherwise. Kurt has
Mhm.
bones in his basement. He
Kurt is the
creeps
most
me out.
uninteresting person that ever lived. So much so I confused him with an extra. For a good part of the show. I thought he was that same friend that was with them at the beginning in the flashback scene, Doug. And it took me the second watch to realize that Doug and Kurt were not the same person.
Yeah. I mean, but I just never I could not figure out if she was happy being in a relationship with Tammy,
I think she's going to be with
because like
someone.
Tammy also, I feel like, was trying to isolate Patty to a
Mm,
certain extent. And
yeah.
under you know how abusers are always like, I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to
Hmm.
protect you, I'm trying to save you. She
Yeah.
was doing that with Patty. She was pushing, like, she was like, you're spending too much time around Allison. I don't think she's good for you. But also I feel like she was trying to put some distance between Patty and Neil, which, yes, do they need distance, but it should
Hmm.
not have been Tammy creating that distance. Just
I
like
agree.
I feel like even with the relationship with Allison, were there toxic parts of that relationship, that friendship? Yes, but it was not Tammy's job
It
to
wasn't her
try to
decision to make.
separate them.
No, yeah, I didn't like that about her either. I felt like she was incredibly pushy. And while I agree, like there are things that Tammy is right about, but she went about it the wrong way. Yes, she needs some space from Neil because like they both need to separate and grow up and have their own lives. Yes,
Hmm.
Allison is a bad influence on her, but you don't have the right to make that decision for her. And there are several times where
Right.
she tried to make that decision for her. I did not like that
Hmm.
at all. And then
Right.
she said a line like, "Well, Patty doesn't know what's good for her sometimes," or her trying to make Patty like vodka when Patty said very clearly, "I don't like vodka, I like beer."
Right. And like,
It's
but
weird.
those are the things that happens in the beginning of an
Hmm.
abusive relationship that seems small and inconsequential. But then over time, next thing you know, you have no friends, you have no control, you don't have like decision making, you don't have agency anymore. And
Hmm.
so if their relationship would have progressed, I feel like Patty was headed towards an abusive relationship, because to me, I was
Yes.
starting to see the markers.
Hmm. I can see that. I can see that. I felt like it was inappropriate. I felt like Tammy was pushy. I don't know that I necessarily went that it. I thought like, okay, this is going towards abuse, but now you mentioned, I can see it because like even like trying to get her out of Worcester, even though again. I agree. Tammy needs to not Tammy. I'm sorry. Patty needs to leave Worcester. She needs to know there's a world outside of here and know everybody outside is not miserable. But
Hmm.
she has to make that decision for herself. And she gets the right to say, hey, no, I want to stay here in this miserable existence if that's what she chooses.
Right. And then, like, at the end, like,
Hmm.
I guess Patty gets her happy ending because in the end, her and Allison just get to be like friends together. I think, like, when I saw the ending the second time, I'm like, I think Patty thinks that her and Allison are going to get married. Because
Okay.
I, I feel like, I don't think this is how it was in the beginning, but
Hmm.
by the end of the show, I personally feel like Patty was in love
Love
with
with
Allison.
Allison. And so no, okay, I wanted to ask you that directly because I was like, that's the vibes I got. I'm like, I do think she's grappling with her sexuality because she's never considered being with a woman before. So that some of that
Hmm.
is grappling with her sexuality, but I don't think she's in love with Tammy. I think she just likes having someone there. You know,
Hmm.
I do think she was in love with Allison.
I
I
do too.
absolutely do.
I do too. And the reason why is because when Allison left, she just froze and
Hmm.
refused to make any moves and made her whole
Progress.
life about finding her. And I'm just like, girl, do you understand that she kind of was a hurricane in your life? Like,
Hmm.
yes, you guys kind of like bonded and spent some time together, but that was because you were serving a purpose to Allison.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Alice, like I said, Patty and Sean became Allison's henchmen.
Sam. I'm like, who is Sean?
Sam, I'm sorry. It started with an S, and
I
it
was
was
like,
it's a
was
simple
that
name.
the other cop? Who is Sean?
Sorry, Sam. Patty and Sam became Allison's henchmen, and
Mm-hmm.
she would call them up whenever she was in a bad situation or she needed something, and they would drop everything and go and help her,
Mm-hmm.
and they were both in love with her,
Yeah.
and so I feel like she used that to her advantage because once again, yes, she's a victim, but she's not a good person.
Right. Absolutely.
She is not a good person.
No, she is.
And even like she created mess after mess after mess. And when she finally decided that instead of killing Kevin, she was going to fake her own death, she phrases it as if I'm doing this to help you guys because there's so
Mm-hmm.
much stuff going on and I if I leave, I can make everything better. No, ma'am. She had created so many messes and so many fires and
Mm-hmm.
everything was piling down, and she knew that everything that she created was about to collapse,
Yeah,
and so
I
she
agree.
left. Now, because she left, Patty was able to blame everything on her, which that is what they agreed to, but
Mm-hmm.
it was not selfless. She wanted to leave. She had decided that she wanted to leave. Yes, she was having cold feet and she said she wanted to stay. But when she said she wanted to stay, she did not have like a plan because you said you needed to kill Kevin because that was the only way you would be free.
Mm-hmm.
Then you decided, well, I'm not going to kill Kevin. I'm going to fake my own death. Then when it's actually time to do the fake your own death, now you're like, well, maybe I want to stay. Were you going to kill Kevin because you said that was the only way you could stay? Like she never came up with like a plan on how she could stay and not kill Kevin, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of makes me think about what her mom said. She just be saying stuff sometimes and she
Mm-hmm.
does not think things through because even when she said she wanted to fake her own death, she didn't even know how she was going to do it. She had like Patty trying to pull out her teeth and Patty's like, well, how are you going to do it? She's like, I don't know. I'm going to set Kevin's car on fire and just throw my teeth in the front seat. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
I
okay.
defend her. I'm a mother. I'm going to keep defending her mom.
Never will I ever. That woman
She
is
might have had a
evil. That woman is evil. Yeah, if somebody has broken you down and made you feel like you're stupid your whole life, yeah, it's probably hard for you to think and conceive of plans. But again, I'm sorry. I get no. That mother, that the narcissism was strong with that one. Absolutely not. She is another one that brings down everybody around her, and I think that is her goal and her point. But the thing is with Allison, I don't think she wanted to leave. I think when that changed her mind, she really changed her mind. But it was about to come down on her. And so Allison is a hurricane or a cycle or something. She just brings everybody down around her, but you don't directly know that it's her. So like while it is directly Allison's fault that the drug source dried up and she's no longer a drug dealer, you don't know that she's the one who called the police on the drug dealer who gave up the thing. You never know. So with the reason why she left is because she had set up Kevin to set up Tammy to get rid of him, again, not considering how getting rid of Tammy would affect Patty. But when
right.
the way he came up with it was like, oh, you have to sign this affidavit saying that you saw her planted evidence. And she was like, oh no, that's going to directly come down on me. And then people will know,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't pretend to be the good person. That's why she left.
Right.
There was
I
no other
agree.
way out that didn't cast some shadow on her. And that she does not do.
Right. Yeah, she did. Like I don't. I hated that. Like I feel like other people's takes was, oh, she was trying to be a good friend and she's different than
Absolutely
Kevin.
not.
No,
It's not that
no,
far.
because
They're not that far off
they're not because she's willing to weaponize Kevin when it suits her.
when
She
it
will
suits her.
sick Kevin on people, you know what I mean, when it
Mm-hmm.
solves her problems.
Right.
And I'm like, why would you, if he's so terrible, why would you unleash him on someone
Well, someone
else?
not knowing what he's going to do, because this man has set fires, he has put sugar in people's tanks, he's done crazy stuff to people. So you unleash them, but it really pisses. As much as I did not like Tammy, that pissed me off because I'm like, this woman is already struggling. She's the best police officer in there. Like, say what you want about her, and she's a good police officer. She's a good
Mm-hmm.
detective, and she's the best one there. And she never gets
Right.
promoted. And so you're about to ruin this black woman's career. And I'm like, you who's already struggling in this town, who literally will not promote her just because she's black and gay, and you're about to ruin her
Mm-hmm.
career just so that the slightest little shadow doesn't cast on you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. And not considered. Okay, so then if Tammy loses her job, who I think at this point is living with Patty, I think they're living together at this point. Maybe, maybe not.
No, they're not
Not
living
yet.
together.
But they're
Because
together.
remember, yeah, they're together, and Tammy asked Patty to move in, and Patty thought about it, and she said yes, but she hadn't actually moved in
Moved
with
in
her.
yet.
And
Okay,
then later
so
on, they actually move into Patty's house when Allison leaves.
okay, yeah. So, but either way, they're together, and you know she's with your
Hmm.
friend that you supposedly care about, but you were still willing to throw her under the bus just for just for your own personal gain. So no, she's not selfish, and you didn't even consider what that would do to Patty. Let's
Hmm.
say you and Tammy
Yeah,
are not friends. I get it. But you would not even consider what that would do to Patty. And then again,
right.
you're certainly not considering the racial implications of what Tammy's already gone through with that police officer. And because you didn't
No.
care when your husband is lighting fires and calling the neighbors foreigners.
Hmm.
You know
That's
what I mean?
very true. Yeah, that's very, very true. And so we've kind of talked about
Hmm.
Allison's relationship with Patty and Tammy. What about Neil? Because I have a lot of feelings when it comes to Neil,
Hmm.
because I'm just like, Neil is not a good person,
No.
but I have sympathies for him. Maybe am I too sympathetic to people, like, because I do feel sympathy
Hmm.
for him, because I know, his
I,
childhood, like his mom died when
hmm
he was young, his dad was absent. Basically, Patty raised him.
hmm
And
Patty's younger
I
than him.
personally, she is, but she
Patty's
raised him.
younger
She's
than
3 years younger than him. But
him.
I also think that he's not all there.
And I agree. I agree. So here's the weird thing. I had sympathy for Neil the first watch. The second watch, I
Hmm.
actually lost some because I think I saw a little bit more of how much he plays into like he plays dumb in order to
He
get other
does.
people to take care of him. One, um, he refuses to grow up. You know what I mean? Like he
Hmm.
refuses to grow up. And yes, but Patty had the same hard childhood as you did. And Patty still,
Yes.
at least at the bare minimum, maintains a job and maintains that mortgage. You act up as if somebody owes you something. You know what I mean? Like somebody, like people to take care of you, at least in the way that he talks to Patty. Now, while Kevin is paying his bills, he doesn't talk to Kevin that way, but he talks to
Right.
Patty like she owes him something. And I'm like, she really doesn't. Sir, you're 36. You
Hmm.
know, you
Yeah,
36.
I agree. I'm gonna tell you, like, I have certain sympathies
Mm-hmm,
for him, but what was so shocking
mm-hmm,
was the scene where he was hiding and he overheard Patty and Allison talking about how they were going to kill Kevin, and he attacks Allison because he's trying to call Kevin and Allison is trying to grab his phone, and he attacks her, and it was way more violent than anything that happened on the show. And because
mm-hmm.
I was so used to like the sitcom veneer and moving over to the drama, but the drama is usually more emotional than actual violence, like it was shocking the way that he attacked her. So we were talking about Neil and how violent that attack was on like Allison, because once again, Neil is tall and Neil is big compared to Allison. And he, I feel like, was more violent than was even necessary when he was
Agreed.
trying to get his phone away from her, and the way he was
Mhm.
choking her. And
Yeah.
to the fact that Patty, who had to actually like hit him over the head and literally cracked his skull in order to get him off of Allison, like that was so shocking to me.
Yeah,
It
that was
was
hard to
so
watch.
it
That
was.
was
It
hard to
really
watch.
was.
Yeah.
And so what was interesting was the in the aftermath. So Patty hits Neil, and then Allison hits Neil because Neil threatens to go to like the police
Hmm.
about what's going on, and Patty hitting him. So he's been attacked twice in a short period of time. They end up taking him next door and kind of holding him hostage for a few days. Eventually Patty takes him to the hospital because she's very concerned, with him. And then after this incident, Neil experiences PTSD.
Yeah.
which I find interesting
Interesting. Agreed. Agreed.
because you were excessively violent and
Hmm.
you've also been party to the abuse that Kevin has been giving to Allison. Neil verbally abuses Allison, like,
Hmm.
and I'm like, how are you traumatized by this
Yeah.
situation when you were violent
Right.
in the
Well, I
same
mean, I think
situation?
it is an interesting take on it that he has the PTSD from it, but he did get hit, and it doesn't necessarily. I guess it doesn't have to make sense. You know what I mean? Like the whole scene was a lot. So
It
I
was.
did find it interesting that he was the one that had it, but and he also probably maybe had a bit before. There's a lot of stuff about their
Mhm.
childhood that they allude to violence and things like that, but they don't go into detail.
Okay, let me also ask, do you think that part of the reason why he had the PTSD was because whenever he would tell someone what happened to him, no one would believe him? Do you think that was
Um,
also part of the reason?
which like the when he would tell them what happened as far as with Allison, or when he would tell them what happened as a child.
Allison, as far as like Allison
Mhm.
wanting to kill Kevin, he went around and he told Kevin, he told any and
Mhm.
everybody who would listen, all of his friends, everybody they know, he would go around and say, hey,
Mhm.
Allison's trying to kill Kevin and she hit me and to try to hide it. And everyone's
Yeah.
like, you need to stop drinking or,
Yeah.
laugh in his face. And no one took it seriously. Do you think that added to the PTSD or do you think he would have had PTSD like regardless?
I think he would have definitely had it regardless because like whenever he flashes back, he flashes right to the hit. You know what I mean? Like he flashes
Hmm.
back to the hit. He doesn't necessarily flash back to the part of it that he participated in, the choking or anything like that. But it definitely doesn't help. And it definitely keeps him from getting the actual, well, I don't know that he would ever seek the actual help he needs, but I
Hmm.
think the people not taking him seriously prevents him from getting help, you know?
Okay. And so now I have another question.
Hmm.
Neil did violently attack Allison
He did.
wholeheartedly. Do
Absolutely.
you think she used that as a weapon? The fact that
Absolutely.
he attacked her?
She used everything to the point where Patty says at some point, "Stop showing me your bruises." You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
every time Patty would waver in what she wanted her to do in regards to Neil, which was her Allison's response was horrible to keep that man in prison for 2 days. Like they should have took him to the hospital immediately. That is horrible. That is
Yes,
abusive. Quite
it is.
honestly. And so, but every time Patty would be like, I don't know, maybe we should go to the hospital, she would pull down her thing and show her, and Patty told her to stop. You know.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Which is
she weaponized
interesting
everything.
because we know that Kevin is also hurting Allison.
Hmm.
Like they show it, but they show it in in the sitcom realm. But notice, like I feel like she never weaponizes the bruises that Kevin gives her. The way
No.
that she used the bruises that Neil gave her as
Hmm.
a way to control Patty. Allison is not a good person.
No, she is.
She did not deserve the stuff that Kevin did to her because
She
no one
didn't.
deserves to be treated that way.
Hmm.
But Allison is also extremely abusive and she is also a problem. And once again, I always wonder how,
Hmm.
if you are being abused,
Hmm.
right, and you know how it makes you feel, how you can then turn around and abuse someone else. You
Hmm.
know you're being manipulated. How can you then turn around and manipulate someone else and be okay with that?
Well, and that's why I'm like, that's why I keep saying she participates in that sort of toxic cycle of abuse. You know what I mean? Like, and
Mhm.
to some degree, and I'm not justifying it, but she sees that manipulation as her only way out. You know, like so, like, oh, I can't really leave, but I can manipulate Kevin into doing what I want to do for me. I can't really,
Mhm.
let Neil go to the hospital, but I'll manipulate Patty into keeping him here or whatever, so that I don't get in trouble.
Mhm.
But none of the
She
things are the things that
definitely
would need to happen to actually break the cycle. They just keep
right.
it going.
And so, okay, I want to pivot and talk about her relationship with Diane,
Mhm.
because it's one of the few I feel like arcs. There's to me not a lot of character growth in this show. A lot of the people have really messed up lives and were in really terrible places when the show starts and when the show ends. There is not a lot of growth. But Diane is someone who, one, does grow in the show, but even her relationship with Allison grows in the show in a way that's actually healthy.
Hmm.
How crazy. When I first watched the show and first saw, like, her relationship with Diane, I was kind of annoyed because Diane was always giving Kevin compliments, and I'm like, how are you complimenting him? You, like, why can't you see what he's doing to Allison? Also, because you are in a very similar situation. And there comes a point in the story where Diane is starting to understand more of what Allison is going through, or at least of the fact that Allison is not happy and does not want to stay. And she starts
Hmm.
to assist her in that. And even though, like, Diane is open to helping her, Allison still uses Diane. Like, when
Yeah.
Diane finds out her husband is cheating on her, Allison convinces her to go and talk to a private detective. Not because Diane needs the services of a private
No,
detective at all. Allison needs those services, and she's trying to get Diane to
to
pay
pay
the
for it.
$350 so she can talk to her. But I really feel like if she would have just asked Diane for $350,
She would have gave it
Diane would
to
have
her.
just given it to her.
Absolutely. And I love that the guy called her out about that too. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the private detective because
Hmm.
he was one of the few people that Allison could not use.
Yeah, yeah, because he kept calling her out and he kept saying, and he was very clear in his boundaries, what he was going to do and what he wasn't going to do. Absolutely.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, she definitely, that's the thing. She has a very usury kind of using relationship with everybody in the situation. I guess even Kevin to some degree, but
Yeah, because she will weaponize Kevin when
she'll
it suits
weaponize
her.
him when
But
it suits her. Yeah.
I did feel like her relationship with Diane at some point got more real and got more emotional. Of course,
Hmm.
that happened because Diane is doing all of these things to help her. But I felt like in that moment, Allison did feel love in a way that she
Agreed.
probably has never gotten from her mom. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I feel
Not
like
your
that was
favorite.
beautiful. And I feel like that was healing for Diane too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Agreed.
saying?
Agreed.
To love her like that.
I completely agree. Diane alludes to the fact that she thinks of her and has always thought of her kind of like a daughter. She's definitely more nurturing than her mother has ever been, even in when she was back there, even at the beginning where she's still in the boys mindset, this is marriage, she's still trying to mentor her and love her in her way. So I still think
Mm-hmm.
she's probably all her life been more nurturing than her actual mother. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she does grow. Diane is also working on herself. Diane goes to AA. She stopped drinking. She's doing different things to clean up her life. She like kind of to some degree will take two steps forward and two steps back, but she's at least making an effort. And so she's making
Right.
progress.
What was the catalyst for her to stop drinking? I tried to pinpoint it the second time I watched it,
Hmm.
and I could not quite pinpoint at what point she stopped
She
drinking, because
stopped.
you don't find out that she stopped drinking until after it's been a long while. There's hints and clues, but you
Hmm.
don't know for sure until she's like, "Oh, I've been sober for 212 days." And so I'm like, "Okay, I'm trying to pinpoint what was the turning point that made her realize I have a problem with alcohol," because she
Hmm.
does have a problem. But honestly, Diane's problem with alcohol is not even as she's not even the worst alcoholic in the show. So when
By
she
far, she's
became
not the worst
sober,
alcoholic in the show.
I was kind of surprised because I'm like, "Oh, there are other people who really need this more than you do."
Hmm.
But I was thankful that she actually had that growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought she said 212 days because I felt like she credited Neil, her relationship with Neil. She was with her getting sober because she said something like she couldn't get sober till she met the guy, and even though she knows she wasn't supposed to be with him. She thought it was okay because she met him before she started getting sober or
Right.
something like that.
Now think about this. When she says 212 days, this is
I
towards
missed
the
the
end of the show.
212.
So Allison has been gone for 6 months. That's 180
Okay.
days right
Got you.
there.
Got you.
So it makes sense that it was around the time,
Hmm.
that she was dating Neil. But
Hmm.
I want, because when her and Allison are in the bar
Hmm.
and Allison gives her the
She doesn't
drink
drink the
and she
beer.
doesn't drink it, she's already like started like sleeping
Yeah.
with Neil. Diane and Neil end up
Right.
sleeping together. And so I don't know if it was when she started her affair with Neil, or Like if she had
Hmm.
already gotten sober and then started her affair with Neil. I wish I knew more clearly
Hmm.
what was the catalyst to make her say, you know what, I have a problem.
Yeah. I don't know, but she does, but she credits her relationship with Neil in AA.
She does. She definitely does. But even when her relationship with Neil kind of falls apart because they kind of date for a while, they break up, you know, because she's married the entire time. And Neil wants more than what she's willing to give him, which I loved the fact that she had
Hmm.
boundaries because she doesn't have boundaries when it comes to her marriage. Her husband treats her like trash. When she starts this affair with Neil, she's getting exactly what she wants. And when she doesn't get what she wants, she walks away from him, you
Hmm.
know, and eventually he comes back and they spend time, you know, but when Neil pushes her for more, she's like, no, I'm not giving, you're not worthy of what you want from me. And I love it because she could have easily like switched places with Patty and been the new person to like raise Neil, the
Mm.
forever baby. But
Yeah, I was
she
worried about
took
that, but she
the
didn't.
top on it. So like she to me, even more so than Allison, has the best growth arc. The best growth arc. You know, I
Agreed.
wish we knew for sure. Do we know for sure? Did she leave her husband?
No, no. I don't think we
I
know for
think
sure
that
that she left
I think
him.
she's still married to him.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that eventually she will leave him because you know she's sober. She has those boundaries in place with Neil. You know, she's taking control of her life and she's like looking for her own happiness.
Hmm.
I want to keep talking because there's still so much to dig into,
Hmm.
but I know this episode is trending a little long.
Hmm.
So, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. In the next episode, we're going to continue with our character breakdowns, and I'm especially excited to talk about Sam and the good guy trope. So, tune in for our next episode, guys.
Thank you.
Can't wait to get home and turn my TV on. I'm ready for the next episode. Got my snap shoes off, my remote control. I'm ready for the next episode. 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 I'm ready for the next episode.